Welcome to Clyde Ellis Medically Speaking and our special series on the fight against the coronavirus. As you can see, we have modified our format to practice safe social distancing while providing timely and factual updates from the Clyde Health team during this public health crisis. We as a healthcare organization believe it's important for the Western New York community to hear from our medical experts who are leading the charge in our facilities and with our workforce of over 10,000 strong. I'm Mike Hughes, and this is Medically Speaking. Dr. Sengupta, thanks for joining us today on Medically Speaking.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
So we want to talk a little bit about managing stress during this pandemic, and in particular for teenagers. So if you can, tell us a little bit about that situation and how parents should be communicating with their teenagers right now.
Sure. I think we need to be thinking a little bit about both how and what we're communicating to our teens. In a lot of ways, their teens are pretty savvy. They're going to be getting a lot of information. We may still need to be limiting and monitoring kind of the media that they're getting. And we need to be thinking about sort of what's appropriate for different age groups, right? What might be okay for a 5-year-old might be different from a 10-year-old, might be different from a 15-year-old. And we need to understand that they're going to have some strong emotions right now. We need to help them acknowledge that, sort of accept that, but still sort of push them to ask the sort of next question of sort of what's next. So, how do we help ourselves, help our family, help our community? And I think that if parents can keep those things in mind, the communication aspect, it becomes pretty important here.
Yeah, I think oftentimes our generation, classifies teenagers as socially distant, but truly this situation, this pandemic has created a socially distant atmosphere. So how does that impact teenagers?
I think one of the things that I'm concerned about is that, especially this current generation of teenagers, they're really used to being connected with their friends, their peers constantly, in lots of different ways. And so I think there's a real risk of feeling somewhat isolated. And so some of it's just the basic stuff, right? We need to make sure they're still, getting good sleep, getting, eating well, getting some physical activity. And normally I might be advising parents and teens, hey, let's watch, be careful about social media and these kinds of things. We might have to loosen up on some of those rules, but I still would like parents to be thinking about quality, right? So, as opposed to just sort of passively, let's say like playing a video game and just being on with the friends, can we actually engage in social media, social technologies that are still, fostering conversations, connections, actual supporting, each other. And then, can we find ways to actually still maintain connections with our real social networks, right? We can still talk to our teachers. We can still connect with our grandparents and extended family, maybe through some of these social technologies. Can we still find ways to help out our neighbors, obviously in a, socially, and physically distant way, in a safe way. But I think there's still ways that we can connect with others that can help sort of break some of that isolation that teens can feel.
Sure. So in a situation like this, anxiety, disappointment, these are natural things when it comes to communicating with teenagers?
Absolutely. And again, I think we really need to do a good job of acknowledging that, right? And again, that whole idea of sort of acknowledge, we accept it, that's what's happening, and then we think about sort of what's next. And I think we need to be able to send the message to our teens that, look, we're in a difficult situation. We're going to work through this together, though. We're going to get better as a community, that there's real hope. We'll be okay. That has to be the message that I think parents send teens.
So I myself have two teenagers, one that's soon to be 17, one soon to be 19. They are struggling with this, I can tell you. How important is it to encourage healthy sleeping habits, eating, physical activity when the normal structure, calendar, function of their lives has changed so much?
Right. I mean, really think about it. For our young people, we do a lot to add extra structure into their lives. Think about sort of summer vacation for our teens. Things go a little bit sideways, and that's okay. But this may not be the time for that. Especially with so much uncertainty, it can be important to try to help them create some certainty and structure in certain aspects of their lives. So, for instance, with school, we want to make sure that they're still hopefully doing some learning every day, and trying to kind of connect a little bit of work with then some reward, right? And maybe you do a block or two of those within a day, maybe more if we're in a with an older kid. But we still want to have some structure throughout the day, something that they can understand that they have some control over, they have some responsibility for. But I think that's still important to keep things sort of have that sense that we're still moving forward, we're still progressing.
Sure. So as we're wrapping up, maybe grieving's a strong word, but there's a loss of normalcy. There's a loss of tradition, experiences, activities. There's that true in-person connection with their friends and family. What should we be encouraging and talking about in terms of new traditions and experiences?
Absolutely. I think in some ways actually grieving is really the right term here. I think a lot of certainly our families, our young people, they're sort of struggling. I'm thinking about our cohort of kids that was getting ready to graduate, and they may not have some of those same experiences. And again, I think we need to acknowledge that and help them accept those. But also, this is an opportunity, thinking about sort of silver linings is how can we still come together as a family, right? What are new experiences that we can have together? What are ways that we can still make, what's happening around them feel meaningful, feel fulfilling? And I think there's ways that we can still do that if we sort of tap into the creativity and the connection we have with each other. And that's, I think, one of the things we want to help our teens still feel is that they're maintaining their connections, certainly with their peers, but also their family, their community, and that all together we're going to work together and we're going to be okay.
Well, Doc, thanks for your time. I know it's stressful for everybody. Appreciate your insight on this most important subject. Thanks for joining us today on Medically Speaking.
You bet. Thanks for having me.